is true that by giving the title Introduction to my short expose, I meant to offer an introduction to Jürgen's book that came out with Princeton University Press in 2020. However, as you well know, books do not simply write themselves. There's always a person behind the book. My task, as I see it now, is also to say some words about the person behind the book. Our symposium takes place as a tribute to the author, Jürgen Renn, the head of Minerva Center's academic board, which just received his honorary doctorate from our university. Next month, he will also get an honorary doctoral degree from the Hebrew University. This indicates that his status here in our country is extraordinary. Jürgen has become a friend of progressive Israel and of Israeli science. However, no less significant is the fact that many of us have become Jürgen's friends along the years. Collaborative writers of some of his books, like Gideon Freudenthal from the Cohn Institute, Hanoch Gutfreund from the Hebrew University, ex-students like Shaul Katzir, collaborators with Jürgen on various research topics like Leo Koi and myself. Many others, Professor Shafei Ungur and the late Yehuda Elkana, as well as Dr. Ido Yavetz and Dr. Michael Elazar, and Gabi Motzkin, of course, who is here with us, has been the director of Van Leer and professor at the Hebrew University, all spent longer and shorter periods of time at the Max Planck Institute for History of Science in Berlin, where Jürgen has served and is still serving as director of the Institute and of Department 1. Not only has Jürgen taught in Israel, collaborated with many Israelis, befriended many others, on top of all these, he has also been ready to dedicate time and efforts to serve as the head of the academic board of Minerva Humanities Center in the last 13 years. And believe me, this has not been very easy at all. And now to the book, around which we have built this event, an event that closes up a long period of intense activities of our 3 departments at the Humanities Center, dealing with living together of 5, a lexicon of political concepts of Ariel, has been the Department of Radiography, and migrating knowledge, which I myself headed. So now to the book. The Evolution of Knowledge, Rethinking Science for the Anthropocene, is an exceptional text. Among others, because it consciously goes against the mood predominant in the historical disciplines until recently, sometimes called microhistory. This is a mode of research and presentation embedded in detailed analysis of well-bounded local case studies conceived as capable of expressing quintessential historical truths. In our subdiscipline of history, such truths concern science, its production, development, and dissemination from a local context to universal adoption and application. Consciously working against the current of microhistory and joining the emerging field of world history. Here now, better. The book is characterized by 6 major directions that together shape a breakthrough in the way the history of science has been perceived until now, in terms of its insights, creativity, and originality. So I'll shortly speak about these 6 points. First, taking its point of departure from the conviction that science is not an intellectual product sui generis, born in the West, but a kind of knowledge rooted in basic experiences of human beings and even animals. The book traces structures of knowledge acquisition drawing on a variety of disciplinary traditions, from evolutionary biology, experimental psychology, geology, earth science, and archaeology, to history, philosophy, anthropology, sociology, cognitive science, and economics. B, the book delineates in detail and in original ways mechanisms of knowledge acquisition, consolidation, transmission, transformation, innovation, and dissemination, such as practicing with objects, first-order symbolization or representation in language, application to new context, resulting in the relation of new objects, such as simple machines, which are kind of external representations, second-order reflection on practical experiences and inventions, leading to abstractions or conceptualization, creation of mental models, these are internal representations, and the inscription in text, the creation of social and institutional niches for the survival and transmission of knowledge, integration of old and new knowledge and its reorganization, creation, intellectual and institutional structures necessary for the dissemination of knowledge, and finally, the sum of practical, intellectual, social, political, and market conditions allowing for the construction, integration, consolidation, reorganization, and spreading of knowledge analyzed in terms of communities of knowledge, of economies of knowledge. And third point, the book exposes and reconstructs the above-mentioned mechanisms through an examination of a plethora of deeply researched historical case studies that are not limited to a certain historical period or geographical territory. Quite the opposite. In an astonishingly daring way, the book includes case studies from the depths of global history, such as the Neolithic Age, the emergence of writing and basic mathematical thinking in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, Greek science, its adaptation and translation to Syriac, Arabic, and Hebrew, and later on into Latin, pre-classical and classical mechanics developing in early modernity in Europe, mechanical praxis and thinking in China, 18th century chemical revolution, early and later industrial revolutions, relativity theory, and more. D, from the discussion of historical case studies within a well-developed conceptual framework, emerges the theoretical language that guides and enables a long-term narrative of global knowledge. The main terms of this theoretical language are the challenging objects, namely those objects whose nature and mode of behavior challenges accepted intuitive and practical assumptions about the world, such as that motion implies force. Internal and external representations, the first developed into signs of things in the mind and mental models, the second consisting in text, tools, machines, institutions, social and political context, given to reconstruction and constituting shared public knowledge. Fifth point, the book deals with knowledge as it is always on the move, resulting in the conclusion on the broad basis of historical analysis of case studies that knowledge has always been global. The historical example of processes of the globalization of knowledge span from the 3rd millennium BCE and up to the present, from ancient Mesopotamia through the Arab Empire, Europe, China, and South America. And finally, the urge for writing the book is rooted in an analysis of the era of Anthropocene, a new human geological age according to some contemporary scientists, and the challenges it poses to humanity. Thinking about the Anthropocene takes into consideration the impact of human activities on the Earth system, such impact is contingent, the result of mechanisms of variation and selection, potentially inducing progress, but also destruction of the planet. The book is rooted in a view that knowledge may provide a key to solve contemporary problems. It points out the possibilities opened up by digital globalization and its dangers, relates to artificial intelligence and the risk it entails, promotes consciousness of the need to connect knowledge of the natural sciences to knowledge of the humanities and to develop a new economy of knowledge. It seems that in the author's view, history of science can provide a vision for coping with such huge challenges and serve as a model for new types of knowledge required by the new era. The spectrum and richness of this structure are simply breathtaking. Similar attempts to tell the history of world knowledge often suffer from simplification, flatness, or superficial view of complex phenomena. This book represents the opposite. It provides the reader with a general view of the evolution of human knowledge from its roots without giving up on detailed analysis and complex explanations of particular phenomena. Yet, it achieves an unusual narrative clarity that attracts the reader not only to start this long journey, but also to go through it until the very end. The greatest achievement of this book lies in its great synthetic power. As claimed by the author in the preface to the book, in the last decades, his history of science has suffered from the collapse of great narratives about the growth of knowledge, the progress of science, or even about paradigm shifts, all adapted to the story of science in the Western world. The result was fragmentation that has impoverished the capacity to tell a story about the role of knowledge in human life and culture, and a lack of vision about its capacity to solve problems and give meaning to humanity at large. The evolution of knowledge is an attempt to fill in such lack. It offers a story of evolution, namely of continuous development pending on conditions of variation and selection, thus emphasizing the contingency of knowledge development towards possible but not inevitable progress or destruction. Among others, the book offers a clear summary of Jürgen's complex work along the years, a work characterized by exceptional broad horizons and historical conceptual breakthroughs. On a more personal note, the book calls upon many common themes with which both of us, and myself, I allow myself to take you a minute of your time. We both have engaged ourselves along the years. Starting with our doctoral research, both of us have dedicated our doctoral dissertation to Galileo Galilei. We handed in together a proposal for a chief project in Bonn. From this project, we produced a book of articles on the emergence and expansion of pre-classical mechanics. Many years before, Gideon, as I already said, was Jürgen's partner, together with Peter Damerow and Peter McLaughlin, to the writing of Exploring the Limits of Pre-Classical Mechanics that came out with Springer in 1992. And years later, Hanoch Gutfreund, together with Jürgen, wrote The Formative Years of Relativity, the history of meaning of Einstein, and the history and meaning of Einstein's the history and meaning of Einstein and Can you help me?
No.
So,
Book published by Flynn. The history of meaning of the meaning of relativity.
the meaning, right?
Meaning of relativity is a book. History of meaning of the meaning.
For all these reasons, and many others, we decided to dedicate to Jürgen with much gratitude and love the last event of the Minerva Center, hoping and believing that this is not the last event with Jürgen, namely it is one station in a journey, not the end.